Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Have you or loved one been wronged by shitty wrestling? Call Yikes and Oof Attorneys at Law. 1-800-976-6299. That's Yikes and Oof Attorneys at Law.
Normally when I record a video, I have it planned out, I have it structured, I have a script or at least some kind of format or an article I'm covering with, my notes on the side and bullet points. But I figured today we'd talk a little bit more wrestling before I get back to some horror coverage, which is coming next week in the form of the review of Halloween Resurrection, our live review of Tenebrae, and much, much more. So, yeah, we've got some more classic scene breakdowns and things. But today's wrestling again. And I want to start out with WWE because I get a lot of flack on some of my reviews by people who say I'm just a hater and I'm rough on WWE. And I look at that and it just makes me laugh because I'm literally tonight at 6 o'clock going to get back into the ring for the first time in 7 years. Start training again and put some more size on, and I'm going to start wrestling once a month, do a show. Just because I miss it, and I'm 44. I'm in good shape. I want to give back to the business. And there's a lot of young guys in the promotion that I'm going to work in, and I can help with promos and gimmicks and stuff like that. So it's like I have something to give back. And that's what you don't see a lot out of the business, because it's a very self-centered and, ego-driven business to where everybody's out for themselves. So, yeah, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just, me personally, that's my goal of getting back into it, is kind of giving something back. And that's my kind of jumping off point for today is a lot of these younger workers don't have any psychology whatsoever. You really get a sense of who they are and what their motivations were for getting in the business in the first place. I mean, wrestling used to be outlaws, and it was either jail or you become a wrestler, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. You'd always have your D1 type athletes, but the majority of them were just big barrel-chested guys. And that the aesthetic has changed to the point now where, me, 6'3", 220, I'm as big as some of the guys on TV that are champions. You put Cody Rhodes over on Brock Lesnar and then made Brock validate him. That is emasculating a man that would just one-shot Cody. And I understand this is entertainment, but one thing I always harp on with wrestling is the ability to suspend your disbelief. And there's certain circumstances that you should be suspending your disbelief. And there's circumstances that make it impossible. I had an example yesterday. It was the Io Sky Damage Control. Damage Control versus, the other female jobber tag team. Was it? It doesn't matter, but when your opponent has to lay there and wait or stand there and wait for 10 seconds while you're trying to, get your balance up on the top rope, well, maybe you shouldn't be up there in the first place. I'm sorry. Or maybe just get up and go. I know you're playing to the crowd and all that, but there's circumstances like that where it's somewhat okay. Still, 10 seconds is an eternity. You had the scenario in the tag match where Dakota Kai was, she was setting up to kick Shayna Baszler, and Baszler has a stand and wait. And then she runs and kicks Baszler, and Baszler doesn't bump through the ropes. She, steps out through them to sell the kick. And it just looked terrible. That's a problem. And I know a lot of people think I just harp on the women, but the reason I do is because you're trying to push women's wrestling so hard. Like they're trying to make it like it's mainstream. And I'm not saying it's not mainstream, but I mean, yeah, everybody, and this is, again, I don't give a shit how this sounds. Everybody wants to look at the ladies, but a small percentage of them are actually competent workers. And by that, I don't mean they can't actually wrestle, but I mean they don't have a good character, and there's nothing about them that is going to make the audience respond to them. I mean, as much as they try to push the Pure Fusion Collective,
The lesbian!
nobody gives a shit about them. Nobody cares about the Pure Fusion Collective. That's a garbage stable, and it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of television time. On the men's side, the Final Testament, really? Nobody cares. They're wasted TV time. And to be fair, AEW has stables like that, like the Dark Order, the Undisputed Kingdom, the Conglomeration. They're just useless wastes of TV time and fill-in for guys who don't have anything else going on. Occam and Razor, or Razor, whatever his fucking name is, the two big fat Albanian jobbers. Just two big fucking jobbers. Karrion Kross, everybody says backstage the guy's hilarious. Okay, cool. Well, you're in front, great look, but just no presence. You've got Paul Ellering and your hot wife, and you're still struggling to get over. So they haven't done anything to build them to make them stand out or make anybody interested in anything that they're doing. Like, who's interested? What kids are sitting there watching Raw going like, man, I can't wait for the Final Testament? Like, nobody. Nobody's waiting for that. Nobody's clamoring for that. It's the same thing with a New Day. Like, I saw a Kofi Kingston match. Kofi Kingston versus Pete Dunne on Raw. Again, that's like a house show match. What steam is there behind that match other than you're having that match to try to further the wedge between Kofi and Xavier Woods because you want to break them up when nobody cares if the New Day's broke up because the New Day has been over since Big E left with his injury. So why are you pushing this now? I understand that they're, their roster members, they've been there for years and years and years. And the New Day was one of the biggest things going for a while, which I don't give a shit if it's unpopular. I never liked the New Day. And before you say, you didn't understand the gimmick, I understood the gimmick. It was to sell merch to little kids. That's awesome. That's what wrestling needs. I don't have to like that shit. Was it good for merch sales and everything? Absolutely. Did you have 3 talented workers in it? Yup. When they would come on when I was watching, I would change the channel no matter what was going on. Not gonna lie about that. It was just painful to watch. Kofi, undersized, still athletic, could have been utilized better, and they really didn't do him any favors with his championship run. That was bad. That was bad. Oh, Lesnar squashed him. Well, really? It's like you really think it's going to be a competitive fight between Brock Lesnar and Kofi Kingston. Again, looking at it from the perspective of being able to suspend your disbelief. No, Brock Lesnar would destroy Kofi Kingston. Brock Lesnar would destroy 90% of the people he's in the ring with. But, he knew how to work. So, the Cody thing, though, that was ridiculous. And it was funny at the same time. That's the way I looked at that. And speaking of Cody as champion has flopped. I don't care which way you slice it. Him being the guy hasn't worked. And I'm going to lay a lot of the blame for Cody's failed championship run at the feet of the COO, Triple H, Paul Levesque. And that is because Paul Levesque is not creative in a sense to where he's going to come up with anything new and exciting. And I know, again, you're thinking, new and exciting in the wrestling business is hard to come by. Absolutely it is. But there's a way of recycling things and making them fresh that are not going to turn people off and make your ratings dive all the way down to 1.3 million when you were, 1.9 to 2 million pre-WrestleMania. And there's people that'll defend this and say the aftermath of WrestleMania, there's always a decline, but is it always this severe and does it last this long? Asking for a friend. Please enlighten me on how many new things Triple H has done under his regime. And don't say, well, he gave us the women's evolution, because I think that was still under Vince McMahon. But I can't remember because it really was irrelevant. And, women's Royal Rumble and women's Hell in a Cell. That's not anything new. That's reusing the men's gimmick for the women. Why not come up with something special for them and make it their own instead of just repurposing things from the men and giving it to the women? Doesn't make sense. If you hold them in such high regard, then why don't you create something new for them? But that would take, effort and creativity, and I do not think Triple H has much creativity. I think Triple H is basically he was always, in his career-wise, he was a reflection of what he saw. So the same holds true with his creative strategies, obviously. And this year's WrestleMania wasn't his. That was not the start of it might have been post-WrestleMania, the start of the Levesque era, but that was still the holdover from a lot of Vince McMahon stuff in WrestleMania this year. So let that sink in, Hunter, before your head gets any bigger than it already is. Now let's talk about Cody some more, unfortunately. Wrestling, especially WWE, has been so flat since WrestleMania. And him going over on Roman to finish my story was one of the worst angles I've ever seen. Cody Rhodes is the most milquetoast babyface. And let's face it, outside of this era, in any era pre-2002, Cody Rhodes is a curtain-jerking jobber. And I'm not making fun of guys who work the opening match, because I'll probably end up working the opening match my first show back by my own request, because I know I can heat the crowd up. There's got to be somebody in the opener that can heat the crowd up, And back then, Cody would have been fodder for a heel. In the lower card, heel, they were trying to push to the upper card. That's the way I look at that guy. Just a glorified job guy who was, I reinvented myself. Oh, okay, Stardust. Yeah, you're Dusty Rhodes' son, but you are 1/32nd, if not more, of the performer he was. And I don't mean in terms of aesthetics. I mean in terms of charisma and everything else that makes a professional wrestler an effective draw. And you can say what you want about the merch sales, because I know he's on top in merch sales, but when you have a product as big as WWE, I'll always go back to this. There's always people that are going to spend money on merch. People bought Ford probes and pet rocks. For those of you youngsters out there who don't know what either of those things are, go look it up. Do yourself a favor. Educate yourself a little bit. Catch up, kids. Catch up. No, I'm just kidding. I love you guys. But, no. Cody, yeah, he might sell merch, but, I mean, as a legitimate draw based on talent alone, it's not there. With no personality. Cool. He comes out in a suit and says, "What do you want to talk about?" Like, that's what his move set. Dropping to the ground, and I know Dustin did this too, and I thought it was stupid then, but dropping to the ground and reaching up to, like, punch your opponent in the face. Like, do you realize you lose all momentum from your punch doing that? And then people have to sell that dumb shit. Like, just think about that. You should have better psychology. Dustin should know better than that. They say it's all the F word. I don't like to say that word because every time you take a bump in the ring, it hurts. And I'm just thinking about 7.5 hours from now, I'll be in the ring, and tomorrow morning I'll probably be like, damn, I wish that was a trampoline like all these idiots say it is. But no, man, Cody's not a good champion. Gunther, his title reign's lost its steam. I mean, Damian Priest brought that up jokingly in the promo, but that's the way they've booked Gunther. They've booked him weak. That's not a good look for your world champion or your undisputed champion, which is stupid. You have a world champion and an undisputed champion. Shouldn't it be the undisputed world champion? I don't know. I just prefer, hey, this is our world champion, not, well, this is our world champion. This is our undisputed WWE champion. This is, it's the women's, same thing on the women's side. You've got Liv with the women's world title and the Leviathan, Nia Jax, has the WWE Women's Championship. It's like, why do you need 2 belts, one on each show? Like, do we need more participation trophies? We do, apparently, because we just added a U.S. women's title. Oh, we need women's mid-card belts. Oh, we need women's tag team belts on both shows like we do the men. And we need everything the men have. We need a women's Royal Rumble and a women's Hell in a Cell. And, we need to have women's Survivor Series matches. And it's just funny. It's funny to me. The women are, a lot of them are just okay. They're like, people, how come they fired Indy Hartwell? Well, just because she's attractive doesn't mean she's good. And she's serviceable in the ring, but she wasn't great. She had no gimmick. What are you going to do? You're going to pay somebody because they deserve to be there? Like this whole, well, he or she worked hard, they deserve it. Not if they don't put asses in seats, they don't fucking deserve it. Like, I don't want people on my roster that don't draw money. I mean, that's just good business. This whole, well, everybody can be a wrestler. No, fuck you. Not everybody can be a wrestler. Everybody can put on gear and cosplay as a wrestler, but not everybody can be a fucking wrestler. And we're seeing that more and more on both sides with the men and the women. Pains me to see a sport that I love get dragged down into the mud by these little video game kids who are, I wrestle like I press buttons, and it's like, oh my god, watching some of these guys wrestle is literally just watching them play a fucking video game. I'm trying to look at this like, we were talking about world champions. Jon Moxley's a world champion in AEW right now, right? AEW, I did a video, AEW has a big man problem months ago. And AEW does have a big man problem. AEW definitely has a big man problem because they don't book big men over there. They book big men over there to get squashed by 110-pound cucks like Darby Allin and Jungle Boy and Hook and what's that other little fruity ass, Daniel Garcia. Like, I mean, I don't give a shit, dude. I don't care. There's no reason to do this. Like, why you got Brian Cage is the ROH TV champion. The man is a real life He-Man action figure, and he is a TV champion. Meanwhile, you're breaking your back to put the fucking your world title on. What's that little the yes guy, Brian Danielson, the American vegan. Like you're we gotta put it on him. We gotta put it on him. Oh my god. Like what? You're gonna have Darby Allin wrestle for your world title? Like, come on, man. Darby Allin looks like a Hot Topic reject from 1997. Dude's great as a cruiserweight. Put him in with other cruiserweights. Take all these little guys that you've been trying to make main eventers and let them do what they actually should be doing. Put them in their actual spot on the card. And AEW would get better. AEW has a talented women's division. They just, I don't understand the decisions behind, hey, we're going to pay Mercedes Moné all this money, and everybody fucking hates her. And it's not like they hate her because she's an effective heel. They hate her because she has go-away heat. Nobody wants to see her or hear her speak. And that speaks volumes about Tony Khan. Because whenever Tony Khan signs somebody, he's got a shiny new toy. It's like that 7-year-old kid who begs for the toy in the toy aisle. And they get him the toy and they play with it for like a week, and then it just gets thrown to the back and they're on to the next thing. That's Tony Khan with his signings. Like I said, where's Ricochet on the card now? I guarantee what I say, by I think January, he'll be all but forgotten about. Unless he keeps acting like a bitch on Twitter, then that might get different. But yeah, the Young Bucks, another tag team another set of guys in AEW that were pushed. Well, I mean, obviously we know why, because they're management. So they just put themselves over, and it was a bad look. And you put Private Party over for the tag titles, and it's like, I'm not a big fan, but it's good to see the belts off of the Young Bucks because they're just bad for business. You know, spent all this money bringing Okada over when Okada can't barely do anything anymore. You got Konosuke Takeshita over there languishing in the fucking Don Callis family for what? For what? What are you doing with this man? This man is that dude is a star. Takeshita is a star, and you've done nothing with him. You know, that's a problem. And I'm just looking overview, big picture here, because it's not sustainable. You know, Shad Khan, they bankroll AEW. He has like a renewable revenue source, an evergreen revenue source, on top of owning a professional football team and a soccer team. But this is not going to last. There's going to be a point where he looks at Tony Khan, his son,
You know something? Nothing for you!
and his hobby of running a professional wrestling company. And, I mean, 2 weeks ago, Rampage drew 172,000 viewers. 172,000. Collision is in the 200,000s, the 300,000s. Dynamite got beat by NXT on Wednesday night head-to-head. And spare me the, they were in the ECW arena. Because, let's be honest, still, there's no way your A show should lose to a C show ever. And they drew, 90-some thousand less viewers? The bigger problem is that WWE is doing numbers that were half of what WCW was doing in their dying days. I mean, that speaks more to the current state of professional wrestling than anything I've said in the previous 17 minutes. You know, I can't fathom seeing the business in this state, and everybody just sitting there like that dog in the room that's on fire saying, this is fine. This is fine. You know, Raw drops down to 2 hours. I saw that as a godsend as somebody who reviews the show. I'm like, oh, I don't want to sit through 3 hours of this shit. Like, why? Why? There's maybe 2 good segments a show. And like I said, I might be being a little bit jaded, but speaking of jaded, Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair should break up immediately. They should break them up. There's rumors circulating that they don't get along backstage, and I can see why. Bianca's got to give the rub to somebody who's been in the business for almost half a decade and still looks like a baby deer in the headlights in the ring a lot of the times. And I'm not taking anything away from him. Jade is the woman is like a perfect 10. But she wants to use wrestling as a springboard to Hollywood, which makes sense. You know, I mean, honestly, I've been saying that since I saw her for the first time on AEW. Is like, this woman should be Storm in Marvel. Like, she is built like the comic book character. Like, her physique is flawless. She is a flawless woman. She just is not the best worker, you know? No real, I mean, the charisma, like, you can tell there's something there, but it's just, I don't know, something's missing. And Bianca, I mean, her resume speaks for itself. And I'm not a fan of her gimmick, but I'm a fan of her talent. And she's a hell of a worker, you know? She's got her way up the card. She earned it from NXT all the way up to the main roster. And, you know, winning the title at Mania from, I believe it was, I don't know, was it Sasha? There's talent there. It's just what you choose to do with it. And you look at AEW, I mean, you've got Toni Storm, Mariah May, Jamie Hayter, even Saraya and Britt Baker. And even though Britt's not the best, still, you got Serena Deeb, Sky Blue. You know, there's a ton of, you know, Camille and Statlander. What's the other one? There's a couple of them, you know, Athena. Jesus, what a waste leaving her in Ring of Honor. But I feel like if Tony Khan brought her up to the main roster, she'd get lost in the shuffle and forgotten.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
And as I'm speaking this, I'm looking at the card for Full Gear, which is Saturday, November 23rd. Okay, let's look at this. Hangman Adam Page versus Jay White. Why, God, why? The AEW Tag Team Championship. Okay, World Tag Team Championship 4-way. You got the champions, Private Party, versus the Outrunners, who those guys are stars. They got themselves over. They're fucking awesome. They're like a throwback team. They have fantastic look. I like them. They should be carrying the tag team division. And then 2 teams to be announced. That match will be a clusterfuck. Jack Perry versus Daniel Garcia for the TNT title. Just call it a cruiserweight match, and I'm all right with it. Mercedes Moon versus Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. Statlander should go over. Swerve versus Bobby Lashley. That I do want to see. And Moxley versus Orange Cassidy. I couldn't be less enthused about because Orange Cassidy is absolute and utter garbage. Good lightweight guy, but seeing him go over, like I said, I always go back to this example. Orange Cassidy wrestled Big Bill and physically dominated him with his hands in his pockets. Then the next week he wrestled Penta and was like physically in peril the entire match. That is Tony Khan living out his fantasies of the little guy beating up the bully because he was bullied in school. That's exactly what that is, folks. That is Tony Khan's projection. And that's why the big guys never, ever really get a push over there that's sustained or has any oomph behind it. You know what I mean? There's no steam. But I could go on and on about this and modern wrestling and how bad modern wrestling really is on a mainstream level now and how that's derivative of people who are involved in the business from the top down, all the way from the bigs down to some of the indies. So, yeah, folks, let me know what you think. Do you want more kind of free-form videos like this? If you watch this long, thank you. You are amazing people. I do enjoy interacting with you. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube things, share the video. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Links are all in the socials, folks. I'm Etep from Wrestling with Horror. If I don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow. Channel members will be thanked right after the sign-off. Remember, it's always better to burn out than to fade away. Savage.